All right, Jeannie, it's been a while.
Yes,
Yes, I think I've known you now for almost, I think, 2 years.
something like
And
that. Yeah.
was it through an online like networking event that we met?
Networking.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that I met you because you also introduced me to Oliver,
Yes.
and we've been in contact ever since. And I know um, it's Mother's Day, and this is the reason why I'm bringing you on board for this special podcast because you're a parenting coach and you're
Mhm.
also a mother, just like myself.
Mhm.
So I thought you would be ideal for this podcast. But before we get on to the topic at hand, I'd like you to tell a bit about your story,
Sure.
please.
Yes. Thank you for having me too. This is always
Yes.
fun to have a fun conversation, especially with a day like Mother's Day coming around. So, my
Yeah.
story is that I do work as a parent coach. I also work in education. Before becoming a parent coach, I was a school teacher. So I taught second, third, and fourth grade in Chicago and in the Chicago suburbs. And when I left the classroom to continue working in education, but just in a different capacity, I was really starting to miss my regular interaction with kids and with their parents, with families, with, the folks who are raising these kids. And I missed working with them. And I had met so many amazing caregivers over the years that I also wanted to find a way to stay in touch and kind of keep that energy in my life.
Mhm.
So, and just it happened to be that I was thumbing through the newspaper, saw an article about parent coaching as an upcoming field, something that I
Oh,
never knew existed. Yeah.
yeah.
Did some research, found a great school, the Parent Coaching Institute, which I would recommend for anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more, trained with them. And yeah, I think it's about 2 years now that I've opened my business where I work with parents, single parents. I work with couples who are raising kiddos together to
Wow.
just help them sort of up their game. I've worked with parents of adult children, parents of itty bitties, parents whose kiddos have special needs. And the work that I do is really just about coaching the parent to help them find their inner resources that they maybe don't realize that they have to do the sort of
Right.
parenting they want to do with their kiddo. So it's not about fixing the kids because the
Hmm.
kids are fine, even if the kids are, present with challenging behaviors. But it's more about helping the parents find their center, find their calm, tap into their inner strength so that they can show up parenting in the way they want to as often as
Oh,
possible. As often as possible.
oh, I love that. I love that. Do you find that as sorry, this is like a side question as you were
Oh, I love
talking.
it.
I,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, as I've heard so many coaches say, when you're coaching the client, sometimes people think, well, you probably have your own problems too, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think what I find is, when you're helping people, you're kind of helping yourself in the process too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a parent, I felt like so when I started teaching my first year, I was not a parent yet. I was
Mm.
pregnant with my first child, my second year of teaching, and then once I had my kiddo, I had a whole new perspective on the parents that I worked with as a teacher, just
Oh,
how
wow.
challenging it can be, how beautiful it can be.
Hmm.
Um, no coach is perfect. If any coach comes to you telling you that their life is wrapped up perfectly with a bow, like run the other way.
Yeah.
Um, I think the secret of coaching is a lot of what you do, Melita, is really your specialty, which is listening, is
Yeah.
careful listening and reflecting and being a non-judgmental sounding board.
Hmm.
I will sometimes say, Simone Biles has a coach who can't do the Simone Biles, only because only Simone Biles can. So we can coach
Oh,
people, even if it's an area of struggle for ourselves. That doesn't mean we can't help. So I
right.
think all of us humans, if we're being honest, we're all walking around with things we need to work on, challenges we have. But in the same way, we show up lovingly for a friend who, let's say, is struggling in their relationship with their sibling or with their
Yeah.
spouse. We don't have to be perfect to lend a helpful ear. So
Oh,
that's
that
sort of
was
my take on that.
beautifully said. I totally agree with everything you said. So now with your parenting coaching that you've established 2 years ago, we want tell me a little bit about the challenges that you faced and some issues that came up that you weren't expecting through this journey.
Oh, do you mean in working with parents? Like things that
Yeah,
they've brought
as
up?
you were like when you started this as an entrepreneur, right?
Oh, sure, 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 sure.
Yeah, what challenges did you face that, obviously that kind of helped you grow in this,
Hmm.
this coaching role?
I think the thing that I've the challenge, just because of my personality and sort of how I float through my days, um, I think was just being more understanding of the fact that everybody's going to do something differently. So I might have a family I'm emailing back and forth with, and within 2 weeks, we've done a meet and greet. They've asked me some questions. We found a date and we hit the ground running and we've started our work together. Other people might email me. We might be emailing back and forth over the course of 9 months. And then maybe I don't hear from them for 2 or 3 months. And then they're finally ready to start coaching. So
Right.
I think it's just understanding that um, to step into a coaching relationship requires a lot of trust. It's a
Right.
financial investment that typically is not covered by insurance. So
Mm-hmm.
people are really investing a lot, and they're coming to me, a total stranger, telling me all about their families, opening,
Yeah.
bringing out all the skeletons. And I think
Yeah.
it's because on my end, I trust my training and I feel like I do my job well. I've gotten good reviews. I'm like, okay, let's go, let's do this. But that doesn't matter because what
Mm-hmm.
really matters is how ready the parents are. Is this the right moment for them? Is this the right time for their
Right.
family to start initiating changes? And it
Right.
might not be.
Yeah.
I was about to get started with a client and she was let go at work, obviously a
Oh,
non-starter, things like that where I want to help, but the time isn't right for them. So I think as
right.
an entrepreneur starting a business is that having that compassion and that empathy that, coaching in particular, because it is such like a tender endeavor that,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's around your kids,
Yeah.
just to have patience and to know that if the timing's right, the timing's right. Or if we have a meet and greet and I'm just not the right fit, great.
Mm,
I hope they find the right fit. I hope they find the right person to
right.
help. So
That's
it's
a
a
good
lot of like,
point.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point about the right fit because I mean, we are all different personalities, right? And so we can't meet everybody's needs in a way that that would be helpful to them depending on,
Mhm.
their life experiences, etc. So that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about, the subject at hand. It's Mother's Day. Why don't we go into me being the listener, let's talk about how it was like when we were younger back in the day, how things have changed, from the way we had listened to our parents and the way, listening is now, I guess.
Mhm. I see a big shift. And this is based, of course, on just like anecdotal experience, but then also in, talking with friends and family, which I guess counts as anecdotal, but then
Yeah.
also seeing a shift in some of the parenting books, the sorts of literature that's out there for parents.
Mm.
I think that, so I'm a child, I was born in 1981, raised in the 80s and 90s, and raised by parents who were from South America. So there was also that sort of additional
Yes.
cultural,
The culture. Yeah.
expectation. Yeah. And my
Yeah.
parents are fabulous. And I
Yeah.
say this about all parents. Every parent really is doing the best they can at the time
Yeah.
with what they've
Right.
got. I think that I will say that I'll just shift to now. I'll say now. What I'm seeing
Yeah.
now, which I appreciate, is a lot of emphasis on actually listening to children, which I would say less so for me. I think maybe for a generation or two prior, this old children should be seen and not heard. I don't remember hearing that much growing up. I think that was
Yeah.
starting to fall out of fashion, thank goodness. Um, I think what we have now with several different parenting movements, some of the personalities on, that are a little bigger on social media, what a lot of them are encouraging is like, your children are people. They are people who are forming in the same way that you are forming. Their developmental stages are legit. We need to listen and pay attention and attend to them. At the same time as the parent, I love this one, a fantastic interview I heard with an author who writes about parenting, that you are still in charge but you don't need to be in control all the time. You can still listen to what your kid, consider their input, ask for their opinions. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
yes, as the adult who has more life experience, who has legal obligations to protect your children, you make decisions. They're
Yeah.
not always going to be the decisions your kid wants. But I
Yeah.
think what's shifted is rather than just like, nope, I'm the grown up, this is it, moving on, to say, what do you think? What is your opinion in the matter? Does this work for you? And the kid might say, no, it doesn't. And then the parent might have to say, well, sorry, kiddo, that's just kind of how it's going to be.
Right.
But I feel like there is more there's more dialogue than there used to
Yeah.
be,
Yes.
which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you're right about that because I've been raised in an Asian culture, and so a lot of the Eastern cultures are, respect your parents, your elders, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, unfortunately back then, right?
No,
Um,
the old
so, but
world.
now
Yeah,
there is definitely a shift I've noticed, but maybe not so much that generation,
for sure. Right.
because the parents are still set in their ways and they're older now. But us being the new generation of parents are starting to see that this is not working in the end, right? And I think they did research. I'm sure done a lot of research on how parents, when they actually engage with their child the right way, especially with listening, showing up and showing that the child matters and that they're valued, whether their opinion is right.
Different
It
story.
just,
Right.
yeah, that they're thriving, right? And the communication channels are just way better that way. That's what I'm finding. I have an 18-year-old now, and he's graduating, and he's at that stage where I'm like, I'm an adult, and it's like, well, okay. But yeah, you're still learning
Yeah.
a lot, as an 18-year-old, as a new adult, as a young adult. So what I have learned though is, my son, he loves video games. And maybe if I was a parent in this 80s, I would have thought, don't talk to me that way, strict rules and
Mm,
everything. He likes to talk to me about his video games,
great.
and I can't grasp the concept, but he is so excited.
Yes. And that's the part that matters. Right.
And that's the part that matters. And he
Yep.
comes to me and he's like, Mom, this game I did this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I even have to show in my expression that I am actually interested in what he's saying. And that's the difference. He knows. He gets my energy when I'm like, especially distracted. And
A
it's
hundred
like, oh,
percent.
I got to listen to this again. No, I actually don't have to show any of that. I don't understand what he's talking about,
Doesn't
but
matter.
yeah. And
Doesn't matter.
I'm just like, okay. And I do throw, as a listener, I do throw the questions because I want
Sure.
him to know that I'm actually listening. So, and he sees that I'm engaging with him, whether, I agree with all that video gaming stuff. So I'm learning through that if I don't do that, he's going to distance himself from me. And that's the last thing I want,
Yep.
for an 18-year-old son, is to be distant from me. So yeah,
And
I get that.
he's in a really
Yeah.
challenging developmental stage where his job right now as an adolescent is to push away from you, but
Yeah.
he's not ready entirely. So it's this
Yes.
push pull. And so
Yeah.
by listening, that's what it is. It's like, I'm going
Yeah.
to try being independent. That was scary. Let me come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And there was, and I've searched for, I can't find it, this Australian parenting organization that has this absolutely beautiful metaphor about a nest. You want to be a nest that your kids can fly back to. So they fly out into the world, they try stuff out. When it gets scary, when it gets hard, when it's exciting, when whatever it is, that they can come
Oh,
back and they can land, and you are like a soft nest, ready to
yeah.
listen to them talk to you about video games. My 8-year-old does the same. He's 8, you have an 18-year-old. He will talk to me until he's blue in the face about his Minecraft world or whatever.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'll ask questions, but I think what's more important is that I am listening. Do I understand
Yeah.
every single detail?
Yeah.
No, but his excitement, his enthusiasm. And I will say props to the older generation.
Yeah.
Something my mom always said is she did a lot of meta parenting when we were
Mm,
younger. At least I remember her sort of like as
yeah.
she would parent, she would sort of explain a little bit what she was doing and why she was doing it. And
Right.
as we got older, um, and this must have been actually once after my kids were born, but she would just say, just keep them talking, keep them talking. Like you want your kiddo to feel comfortable talking to you so that when
Right.
something big happens, when something hard happens, coming to
Mhm.
talk to you doesn't feel weird.
Yeah, no, you're right. That safe space. Actually, I,
Yeah.
I agree with that because, and that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to create that safe, welcoming, comfortable space for him so that when, for example, he did get in trouble for something, he did something wrong,
Mhm.
he didn't want to, I don't want him to lie about it or not tell me, because that'll
Right.
be even worse. Then he won't feel comfortable coming to me at all. So, and he's done that. It's been tricky. Once in a while, I'll get all worked up and it's like, oh, Roger, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes I'm like, Mom, okay, don't get mad at me, but I did this and I know it's wrong. So then I'm calm, right? So the way he approaches it too certainly helps.
Yeah, and I think maybe a way to think about it is like low stakes and high stakes. So think about like a boss you've had, a manager you've had.
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable going to them for the low stakes stuff, are you going to go to
Mhm.
them for the high stakes stuff? No, you're going to
Yeah.
like try to cover your tracks. Same thing
Yeah.
with your kiddos. If we're available to really listen and be present with them for all the low stakes stuff, um, the video game, the drama on
Yeah.
the playground, or even just like, I'm thinking for people with itty bitties, like being patient while they take 10 minutes to tie their shoes because they're so excited because they can
Yeah.
finally do it. We're there for
Yeah.
the low stakes stuff. So then the
Yeah.
high stakes stuff, friends who are taking risks, we have they're feeling they have strong emotions, or if heaven forbid something totally inappropriate happens in their sphere and they need to report it to you, we need to be present for the low stakes stuff so that they feel comfortable coming for the high stakes.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's perfectly said. Wow, beautiful. So yeah, now let's shift to, because
Yeah.
it's Mother's Day,
Yeah.
let's talk about what kind of mothers there are in this world.
Mhm. There's so many.
Yeah.
Something that's important to me is to name and just like really stamp the fact that there are lots of grown-ups who are raising kids in lots of different family organizations and arrangements. Sometimes a kiddo's primary caretaker is a mother or father. Sometimes it's an aunt, a cousin, an older sister. There are lots of folks who can sort of play that role of an adult caretaker and who can bring like kind of mom energy, even if they
Yeah.
aren't mom.
Yeah.
So there are, we have families with two moms or maybe a transgender mom. There are lots of different ways, but I think sometimes what I think about is like the loving energy that you bring.
Right.
To the relationship, being there to support in the hard times, being that soft nest to land in. There are lots of ways to sort of interpret what it means to be a mother. And I think ultimately it's up to someone to decide if that's the role that they play in a kiddo's life.
Yeah.
So I just like to acknowledge that it's not just, you could be an adoptive mother, you could be the birth mother.
Yes.
You might have a
Yeah.
kid who doesn't have a mother because they have two fathers and they had a surrogate. So like
That's right.
there's so many different ways to think about the
Yeah.
role that a mother can play in a kiddo's life. What
And
that can
then
look like.
it comes down to actually the child feeling that, okay, this human is actually like not even like my
Mhm.
mother. This is my mother. Usually a lot of them would say that, right? So
You know,
I know that as a foster parent, being in that community too, I hear that a lot. A lot of the foster children call their foster mom, right?
yeah.
Isn't that, and that's nicer, kinder, I guess, title than foster mom. I prefer, mom, right?
Yeah, sure, sure. But you got to go with the kid, whatever works for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's good. And adoptive too.
Mhm.
Uh, I being a single parent, I play the role of, a lot of people have said, you are the father and then you are the mother. This sort of thing. So yeah, I think when it comes to the mom who, generally they're the ones who usually nurture and discipline and care for the child. That's usually the case. I don't see a lot of fathers do the same just because of the roles. However, I have seen single fathers play the mother and the father. So yeah, every scenario you can think of in this world is it's definitely different from 50 years ago, right?
When I think the roles are a little more delineated, we weren't
Yeah.
as far along our journey as a culture about understanding how fluid gender is and how socially constructed it is also, and that, you
Yes.
know, you have a lot. I'm thinking of a family in particular with two dads who absolutely nurture and love and snuggle and cuddle. And
Yeah.
are they being mom? They would probably say, no, we're two dads, but we
Yeah.
still can bring that nurturing, loving energy and presence. But today we're talking, I guess, about folks who identify as moms or kiddos who have
Right.
adults in their lives who they would call.
Yes. Yes, 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 absolutely. That's great. So, thank you for your time. Um,
Yeah.
but before we conclude this podcast, I have a very important question to ask you. I think the most
Yes.
important question to everybody in this world is, what matters to you?
I think the number one thing that matters to me is connection. So like connecting with ourselves, connecting with other people. We got a dog during COVID. I never had a dog before. I never knew how much I
Oh,
could connect with a little furry animal. But
oh,
at the end of the day, for me, and I know this isn't the case for everyone, but finding ways to connect with others brings a depth and a richness to lives. Sharing our stories, I think, is hugely important. I think we often underestimate how much our stories and connecting with each other through our experiences can really shape and inspire them. So I mentioned to a colleague that I take ballet classes because I do, and I'm a grown up, and like
Good for
Can my
you.
leg go, can my leg go up in the air? No, ma'am, it cannot, but I still have fun. And now my colleague was inspired and now she's going to sign up for a creative writing class. So I think that there's this, when we connect and we share, we just really enrich each other's lives. And listening, as you know, is a big part of that.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful, Jeannie. That was
Yeah.
just wow. You
Well,
know
thanks for
what?
the
I
question.
hope, yeah, thank you. I really hope that you are planning some wonderful things this Mother's Day.
I hope so. I think we're going to do some planting. We're going to do some gardening.
Oh, so that's beautiful. The weather's probably right for it down there
It's
in
perfect. Yeah.
Illinois. Good, awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate this, and I hope we can connect again soon. I know we were talking about doing a listening workshop for parents and children. I
Yes, that would
s-
be great.
that is still. I
It'll
want to
happen.
hold.
It'll
Yes,
happen.
it'll happen. As you know, life can get in the way, especially us mothers, right? But
Yes.
we're still going to do that. That's a promise. So, thank you so much for
Thanks
this,
for having
and
me.
you betcha. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to you too. Take care.
Thank you.